The Omega's Crown Prologue. The crowned Omega. The throne room of Eldoria smelled of iron and incense. Golden chandeliers cast shadows on the polished marble floor, where rows of nobles stood, silks rustling as they whispered behind jeweled fans. On the dais crown of Eldoria gleamed like a sun, waiting to be claimed. Yet murmurs filled the air, disbelief thick enough to choke. An Omega? Surely this is madness. The kingdom will fall into ruin. Prince Elion stood tall, despite their venom. At 22, his frame was slender, his hands delicate, yet his eyes, sharp as obsidian, burned with quiet fire. His elder brother, the Alpha Crown Prince, had abdicated for love, fleeing the kingdom with a foreigner. The throne had fallen to Elion, the unwanted son. He lowered himself before the crown. The high priest's voice thundered, ancient and heavy. Do you, Prince Elion of House Althros, swear to protect the kingdom of Eldoria with heart and body against all who would oppose her? I swear, Elion said, his voice carrying with steady strength. The crown was set upon his head. Gasps rang out like swords unsheathed. An Omega had become king. Elion rose and turned to face the sea of hostile eyes. His heart pounded. His smile was calm. Let them doubt me. I will show them what an Omega can be. His first act as king would silence them all. Chapter 1. The Scarred Alpha. The council chamber buzzed with fury. Your Majesty, appoint a noble Alpha as your royal guard. It is tradition. An Omega king already tests the gods' patience. Must you disgrace the throne further? Elion sat upon his chair, his fingers tapping the polished wood armrest. He let them speak, let them choke on their own arrogance. Then, with a smile as sharp as a blade, he said, Tradition has never protected this throne. Loyalty has, and I will choose the one whose loyalty is beyond doubt. The chamber fell silent when the great doors opened. A tall figure strode in, clad in dark armor scarred with age and battle. His steps echoed like thunder, his presence heavy. His face bore an old, jagged scar running from temple to jaw. His eyes, a cold gray, regarded the room without fear. Kael, once the wolf of the north. The nobles recoiled as though a beast had entered the hall. That barbarian? He was cast aside years ago. Unfit, dangerous. Kael ignored them, stopping before the throne. He bowed stiffly, though it was more a gesture of acknowledgement than true deference. Elion. General Kael. Kael gruffly. I am no general. I swore never to kneel before crown or court again. Elion smiling. Then don't kneel. Walk beside me. A murmur of outrage swept through the chamber. Kael's eyes narrowed. Why me, Your Majesty? You have dozens of eager alphas begging for this post. I am not loyal. I am not obedient. Elion leaned forward, his crown catching the light. Elion, because loyalty born from chains is brittle. I want someone who protects me he chooses to, not because he is commanded. For a long moment, Kael said nothing. His scarred hand flexed at his side, as though fighting invisible chains. Finally, he let out a low laugh, humorless and rough. Kael, you're either bold, foolish, or desperate. Elion softly. Perhaps I am all three. The council exploded in protest, but Elion raised a hand, silencing them. His eyes stayed locked on Kael's. Elion, will you walk beside me, Wolf of the North? Kael exhaled slowly, his jaw tight. At last, he inclined his head. Kael. Very well, Your Majesty. But know this, if you fall, it will not be because I failed. It will be because you trusted the wrong wolf. Elion's lips curved, almost fond. Elion, then I will trust you until you prove me wrong. And in that moment, with the court seething and the nobles fuming, the first thread of a bond neither had sought was quietly woven. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Court. The palace at night was a place of whispers. Moonlight spilled across silver columns, and the air carried the faint scent of jasmine from the royal gardens. Elion sat at his desk, ink-stained fingers moving swiftly across parchment. The new king was already drowning in decrees, treaties, and complaints from nobles who couldn't accept his rule. The quill scratched, and his crown, too heavy for his slender neck, lay discarded beside the inkpot. A shadow stirred near the doorway. Kale leaned against the marble arch, arms crossed, eyes watchful. Kale, you work past midnight again. Elion, without looking up. A king doesn't get the luxury of sleep, especially not an Omega king. Kale, sleep is not a luxury. It's survival. Elion finally raised his eyes, lips curving faintly. Elion, I didn't appoint you to scold me. Kale, shrugging. And yet, here I am. The king chuckled softly, the sound startling even himself. He had expected Kale to be brooding, silent steel. But the Alpha's bluntness, it grounded him. The Banquet of Thorns. 2 nights later, the grand ballroom glittered with light. Chandeliers blazed, musicians played, and nobles paraded in jeweled silks, their words sharpened beneath honeyed smiles. It was Elion's first royal banquet. He took was measured, every word tested. Beside him, Kale towered like a shadow of iron, dressed in dark, formal armor that bore no decoration. The whispers started the moment they entered. Look at him, flaunting that scarred beast. Does he mean to shame us all? An Omega parading with a disgraced Alpha? What scandal? Elion ignored them, spine straight, head high. But he felt Kale stiffen beside him, a predator sensing mockery. When Elion reached the dais, a noble lord bowed with exaggerated grace. His smile dripped poison. Lord Renar, Your Majesty, I must say, unconventional choices are bold, though perhaps reckless. An Omega king, and now this? He gestured subtly toward Kale. Surely tradition exists for a reason. The hall rippled with laughter. Elion's lips curved, but his eyes were blades. Elion. Indeed, Lord Renner. Tradition placed men like you in power, and I see how well that has served the kingdom. Shall we cling to it until Eldoria crumbles, or shall we build something stronger? The laughter died. Lord Renar's face darkened. Kale's gray eyes flickered with something close to amusement. He leaned down, murmuring so only Elion could hear. Kale, you fight with words sharper than swords. Elion, quietly. And you, Kyle, are my shield when those words fail. Before Kale could answer, chaos erupted. The attempt. The far end of the hall. A servant lunged. In the glint of candlelight, a blade aimed straight at Elion's heart. Gasps rang through the chamber. Nobles shrieked, scattering. But Kale moved like lightning. His scarred hand shot forward, seizing the blade mid-swing. Steel bit into his palm, blood spilling, but he twisted, yanked the dagger free, and slammed the would-be assassin against the marble wall with bone-shattering force. The hall froze in horrified silence. Kale's blood dripped across the polished floor, red against white stone. Elion's breath hitched. He descended from the dais, ignoring protocol, and reached Kale's side. His hands, slender and trembling, seized the Alpha's bleeding one. Elion, fierce, whispering, "Don't you dare risk yourself like that again." Kyle, rasping, with a faint grin despite the blood. "Protecting you is the only vow I can keep." The assassin was dragged away, screaming of conspiracies. The nobles' faces were pale, their whispers frantic. Elion saw none of it. His focus was only on Kale, the blood, the wound, the scarred Alpha who had caught a blade with his bare hand to shield him. And for the first time since his coronation, Elion's heart trembled, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Chapter 3. Chains of the Past. The royal physician fussed over Kyle's hand, muttering about stitches and poultices. But the Alpha sat like stone, his face unmoved as the needle bit flesh. His gray eyes flicked only once to where Elion stood, refusing to leave the chamber despite every servant's protest. The king's crown was absent, his golden hair falling loose, his expression tight with something like anger. Elion curtly, "Leave us." The chamber emptied, leaving only them in the flickering candlelight. Kale flexed his bandaged hand, expression unreadable. "Kale, you shouldn't have touched me before the court." It gave them fuel for their whispers. Elion, snapping, "Let them whisper. You nearly died for me." Kale's scar tugged as he frowned. Kale. It was instinct, nothing more. Elion softening. "No, Kale. Instinct does not bleed so willingly." The silence stretched, heavy and raw. Kale turned away, shadows hiding the storm in his gaze. His voice was low, almost a growl. "Kale, do not place meaning where there is none, Your Majesty. I am not the man you think I am." Elion, "Then tell me who you are." Kale's jaw clenched. For a long moment, it seemed he would say nothing. Then, with a sigh rough as gravel, he spoke. "Kyle, I was bonded once." Elion's breath caught. In Omegaverse law, bonds were sacred, rarely broken, often eternal. Kyle, bitterly, "I was young, loyal. She was strong, an alpha of noble blood. I thought myself blessed." His voice hardened, each word a blade. "KL, but bonds can be chains. She used mine to command me to break me. I fought her wars, bled for her pride, while she..." He stopped, hand curling into a fist. The scar on his face seemed to burn. Kael hoarse. "When I finally refused, she cast me aside, left me with nothing but this scar and a vow. Never again." The words hung in the air, thick with bitterness. Elion stepped closer, his voice steady, gentle but unyielding. "Elion, and yet here you stand, still protecting, still loyal, even when you swore never to be." Kale, harshly, "I am broken, Elion. You deserve better than a wolf with shattered fangs." Elion smiling faintly. "Perhaps, but I have no need for a perfect wolf. I need you." Kyle's breath caught at the quiet conviction in the Omega's words. For the briefest moment, something flickered in his eyes, longing, fear, hunger. Then, with a sharp inhale, he turned away, as though retreating behind walls built of scars. Kyle gruffly, "You should rest, Your Majesty. The court will test you harder after tonight. You'll need your strength." Elion studied him, the way the Alpha's broad shoulders seemed burdened with invisible chains. Elion softly, "You carry pain like armor, Kyle. But pain does not make you unworthy." Kale froze, but he did not turn back. And Elion, crownless and weary, realized something dangerous. He wanted to be the one who made Kale turn. Chapter 4. Fire and Moonlight. The banners of Eldoria snapped in the wind, crimson and gold against the steel-gray sky. The borderlands burned. Enemy forces had crossed into Eldoria, certain that an Omega king would falter, certain that a kingdom led by weakness would crumble. But Elion refused to remain behind palace walls. He rode at the head of his forces, clad in armor light enough for his slender frame, crown replaced by a helm of silver and obsidian. At his side rode Kyle, his wolf-gray cloak trailing, his scar catching the light like a mark of war. The soldiers whispered of scandal that a king would ride into battle. Yet when they saw Elion sit tall in the saddle, his voice clear and commanding, the whispers turned to a cautious, reluctant awe. The first clash, the clash came at dawn. Steel against steel, shouts against screams. The battlefield churned with mud and blood. Elion moved through the chaos with Kale at his side, the Alpha cutting down any who dared approach the king. Though Elion carried a sword, he wielded it less like a warrior and more like a symbol, a bright flame amid the storm, reminding his soldiers their king did not hide. At one moment, arrows rained from the ridge. Elion's horse reared, nearly throwing him, But Kale was there, seizing his arm, pulling him down into cover. His body shielded Elion from the deadly hail, his growl low and primal. Kale, snarling. "You're reckless, Elion." Elion, breathless, defiant. "I am king. My people must see me bleed with them, or they'll never believe in me." Kale, furious, voice breaking. "And what of me? Must I watch you throw yourself into death for the sake of pride?" Their eyes locked, heat sparking even amid the stench of war. But then, the horns blared, the enemy retreating. Eldoria's army had won the first clash. The moonlit tent. That night, the war camp glowed with firelight. The air was heavy with smoke and exhaustion. Soldiers feasted, drank, and told tales of their king's courage, voices growing louder with admiration. For the first time, Elion was not mocked as an Omega king, but spoken of with respect. In his tent, however, silence ruled. Kael sat sharpening his sword, whetstones scraping rhythmically. Elion stood at the map table, staring at lines and markers, though his eyes barely registered them. At last, he spoke. "Elion, they will think twice before calling me weak again." Kal, flatly. "Or they will think you a fool who risks too much." Elion turned, his eyes tired but burning. "Elion, you fear for me." Kale gruffly. "Of course I fear for you. I swore to guard you, and yet you make my vow impossible." Elion stepped closer, until only a breath separated them. The firelight painted his golden hair in red, his eyes gleaming. "Elion, soft, steady. It is not your vow that frightens me, Kale. How much I wish you would keep it." Kale froze. His scarred hand tightened on the whetstone until it slipped, clattering to the floor. His breath came ragged, chest rising and falling as though he had run a battle's length. Kyle hoarse. "If I take one step closer, I won't be able to stop." Elion, whispering, unwavering. "Then don't stop. I have been waiting." Kale's resolve cracked like thunder. His hand lifted trembling, brushing against Elion's cheek, scarred fingers against smooth skin. Elion leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering closed, lips parting in silent invitation. The distance between them shrank, hot breath, aching hearts, a bond straining to ignite. But Kale pulled back, as though burned. Kale ragged. "No. If I take you, I'll chain you." And I swore never again. Elion's chest ached at the torment in his voice. "Elion, gently, firmly. Chains are not made by love, Kale. Only by fear." The tent filled with silence, heavy, unspoken. Kale turned away, gripping his sword as though it alone could anchor him. Elion, lips trembling, let the moment fade, but the fire between them burned hotter. Outside, the moon watched silver and eternal. Chapter 5. The Omega's Crown. The bells of Eldoria tolled in triumph. The war was won. In the great throne hall, nobles gathered in shimmering silks, their smiles sharp as daggers. The king had returned victorious, yet already the council plotted how to seize his power. Lord Renar stepped forward, voice smooth as poisoned honey. "Lord Renar, your majesty, your bravery inspires us all. Yet victory brings responsibility. An Omega king cannot rule alone. It is time you marry an alpha consort for the strength of the crown and the stability of the realm." A chorus of agreement followed. Names spilled: daughters of dukes, sons of lords, alphas with power and wealth. Kale stood behind the throne, silent as stone. His face betrayed nothing, yet his fists clenched at his sides. He knew this was coming. He had prepared himself for it. He is king. He cannot be mine. Elion rose slowly from the throne. The hall stilled. His golden hair caught the light. His black eyes gleamed with fire, and his voice rang, calm yet unyielding. "Elion, I need no alpha to legitimize my rule. My strength does not come from my designation, nor from a political match. It comes from the choices I make and the loyalty I inspire." The nobles murmured, some scandalized, some fearful. Renar sneered, "Lord Renar, then what choice will you make, your majesty? Will you leave the throne vulnerable for the sake of pride?" Elion's gaze shifted to where Kael stood, broad and scarred, silent in the shadows. His lips curved in a quiet smile. "Elion, no, I will leave it stronger than ever." He stepped down from the dais, crossing the polished floor. Gasps rippled as he stopped before Kyle. The Alpha's gray eyes widened, his scarred face taut with shock. "Kyle," low, urgent. "Elion, don't. You'll doom yourself." Elion, soft, steady. "No, Kyle. I'll free myself." Then, before the eyes of the entire court, Elion took Kael's scarred hand and raised it high. "Elion," clear, ringing. "This is the choice I make. I will bond not for politics, but for trust. Not for tradition, but for love. My consort shall be Kael, the wolf of the north." The hall exploded in chaos, shouts, gasps, outrage. Kael's breath shuddered. He dropped to one knee, trembling, his voice hoarse. "Kael, Elion, are you certain?" Once bound, there is no turning back. Elion smiling, crown gleaming. "I have never been more certain." Their bond flared into existence, unseen yet undeniable, a surge of heat, trust, and something brighter than either had known. Every soul in the hall felt it, even if they would not name it. The sacred tie of Alpha and Omega, not forged by duty but by choice. Kyle rose, scarred and unworthy in his own eyes. But with the king's hand in his, he looked like a man reborn. Elion turned back to his nobles, crown blazing like the sun. Elion, cold, fierce. "Let any who doubt me now step forward. But remember this, Eldoria does not bow to tradition. Eldoria bows to its king." None dared move. The Omega's crown no longer seemed a weakness. It shone with defiance, with strength, with love that could not be broken. Epilogue. The King and his Wolf Years. Later, the kingdom of Eldoria thrived. Its borders held firm, its people prospered, and its name was spoken with pride across the lands. And at its heart sat the king who had defied the world, Elion, the crowned Omega. But within the royal chambers, he was not king. He was simply Elion. The crown rested forgotten upon a desk, cluttered with scrolls and half-written decrees. A soft breeze carried in the scent of night-blooming roses from the palace gardens. Elion leaned against the wide window, hair unbound, eyes wandering over the moonlit city below. Strong arms slid around his waist, pulling him back against a solid chest. Scarred fingers brushed his skin with a gentleness that always surprised him. Kael, low, rumbling. "You're working late again." Elion smiling faintly. "Says the man who still sharpens his blade after every meal." Kael huffed, pressing his face into Elion's shoulder. The once broken Alpha had softened in these private years, though he would never admit it. Elion turned in his embrace, looking up into those gray eyes that had once seemed so cold. Now, they were the only place he felt safe. Elion, softly. "Do you ever regret it? Bonding me before all? Binding your life to mine?" Kael, hoarse, fierce. "Never. You freed me, Elion. From chains, from silence, from myself." Elion's hand cupped Kael's scarred cheek, thumb tracing the line he once thought a mark of ruin. Elion, warmly. "You are not broken, Kael. You never were. You were only waiting for someone to see you whole." Kael bent, lips brushing Elion's forehead, then lingering against his mouth in a kiss as soft as moonlight. It was unhurried, unguarded, the kind of intimacy forged not in fire, but in years of quiet trust. When they parted, Elion laughed under his breath, the sound full of warmth. "Elion, did I not tell you? You are mine." Kael, smiling, kissing his hand. "And I, forever your wolf." Outside, the city slept under the watch of its king and his wolf. And though history would speak of the Omega who wore the crown, Elion knew the truth. His greatest strength was not the gold upon his brow, but the scarred Alpha who held him through every storm. Together, they were unshakable. Together, they were home.